Now, the issue of affordable housing has been an ongoing crisis for many years. We've seen people illegally occupying land and others staying in hijacked buildings. Cape Town-based lobby group Nfunukwazi says there's been slow progress in developing affordable housing. And researcher Robyn Park-Ross talks to us about the work that they've done, of course, to help people, but as well as the People's Land Map set to be launched today. So, Robyn, thank you so much for your time and a very warm good morning to you. I think before we get into the work that you have done, the research you've conducted, let's just delve into how much of a crisis we're dealing with or we're seeing here when it comes to affordable housing and how it's just turned into a vicious cycle of people even settling for hijacked buildings.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us on the show. I think that's a great point that we need to kind of set the context of this crisis. So we know that in our country, we have had 400 years of colonization and apartheid that systematically dispossessed people of color from land. But even since the end of apartheid, the transition to democracy since 1994, we're still sitting with this crisis, which is actually, we still live with these apartheid cities. Many people live and die on the housing waiting list. For example, in Cape Town alone, we have about 360,000 people on the housing waiting list, and yet the state delivers about 17,000 housing opportunities a year. So already we can see that the government, although there is things to be commended about their rollout of the number of homes, there really is a shortfall. So people really wait their whole lives and die waiting for a home. And there's different layers to this crisis. So part of the crisis is that government provided housing because quantity has been prioritized over quality and over location. We see the state subsidized housing continuing the cycle of people being trapped in poverty on the outskirts of city. Added to that, we have an exclusionary property market. Speaking from Cape Town, this is especially bad. And we see that 75% of our residents in the city can't actually afford the average cost of a home on the market. So there's many layers to this crisis. But really what it adds up to is families who are desperately in need of the fulfillment of their constitutional rights to adequate housing and equitable access to land, left with no other option, provide a roof over their head for their families other than to occupy.
Yeah, I know when it comes to the city of Johannesburg, we've also heard these conversations and debates, especially after the fire that broke out in one of the buildings in Marshalltown, Robyn, that perhaps even the city is overpopulated. Johannesburg is overpopulated in terms of the number of people that also reside in just the city of Johannesburg alone. When it comes to the city of Cape Town, is population also part of, the crisis and the challenges that are, experienced by either government or even developers, that there are also too many people and less or not enough land or housing for them?
So I think we have to face the important reality that on the African continent, we will be facing rapid urbanization in the next decades.
Right.
That is a reality that's undisputable. It's happening. Our choice is, will that densification, will that urbanization be radically inclusive and dense and more sustainable, creating mixed income, mixed race communities, or will it perpetuate these cycles of segregation, of apartheid spatial planning? So for example, just in the city of Cape Town, the city itself predicts that over the next 20 years, the public sector and the private sector put together are not producing enough formal homes for people. So with that shortfall, just over 50%, so 53% of every single home, just over half of every home built in our city for the next 20 years will be informal. Not because that's people's first choice necessarily, but because there's simply no other option. So it's important for us to remember that context. I think we have to see this rapid urbanization as an opportunity to densify and build our cities in a different way. And we have to see this kind of increase in population as an opportunity for how to build better communities. It's with us whether we like it or not. Let's use it to build better. I think what's important to note is, exactly as you say, we often hear this rhetoric from the state that there simply isn't enough land. Because we heard this over and over again, Nfunukwazi started to ask the state 5 years ago to provide us with an audit of all state land in our city where we work from. We were consistently denied this information, despite trying to access it in many different ways. And so we decided to embark on our own audit where we manually mapped through publicly accessible data vacant and underutilized state land across the city. What we found is that the idea that there isn't enough state land is a complete myth. We found 128 square kilometers of vacant and underutilized state land just in our city. That's bigger than the size of the entire city of Barcelona. So to put that in context, we found that just our city municipality, before you get to the province and national and SOEs, owns the size of land. If you put together all these parcels, it's about the size of 9,500 soccer fields. So it's simply not true that the land isn't there. The question is the political will of how we use it. Another example that we found is that just on the three biggest nationally owned vacant and underutilized parcels, which are military bases, we could house up to 67,000 families just on those three parcels alone. So the land is there, it's public land, it's land for the public good. The state is just the custodian on behalf of the people. Let's use that land to build more spatially just cities.
Then it begs the question, why isn't that land utilized? I suppose going back to the point you made about a lack of political will. Let's also just talk about, Robyn, what you're doing. I mean, in terms of the work that you have done, but also the People's Land Map, which I understand is set to launch today.
Yes, so today we're at the District 6 Homecoming Center in partnership with the District 6 Museum, PLAS and SERI at an urban land justice gathering with land and housing activists from all across the city and the country, with artists, with built environment professionals, academics, students, concerned residents. So we gathered here today to launch the map together. It's an online interactive tool that anybody can access and use. You can access your area in Cape Town, see how much vacant and underutilized land we were able to find just in your area, and hopefully use that to advocate for what would make your community a better space. So as an organization, we advocate for well-located affordable housing, but maybe from the area that you're in, you need a youth center, maybe you need an urban garden to build community. There's many different ways that this public land could be used. The most important thing is that first we need public transparency on public land so that communities can decide how to build better spaces, better living environments for themselves. So the map itself, you can find a link on our website, which is NU, so N for Nelly, U for umbrella.org.za. The map goes live today, and you can also see a list of, importantly, when we looked at how much land there was. So first we found, wow, there's this vast amount of vacant and underutilized land that we could be using differently. The map also traces where have there been commitments for affordable housing in Cape Town. So for example, we found that one parcel called the Salt River Market Site within Salt River was actually initially committed for affordable housing back in 2008, and yet we stand in 2023 without a single affordable home on the ground. So the map also traces where have commitments on these pieces of land been, and the lack of delivery on these commitments.
Quite interesting. nu.org.za is the website where we can find the People's Land Map. Robyn, thank you so much for speaking to me about this matter this morning. Quite interesting also that on the app you can trace commitment for affordable housing in the city of Cape Town. I mean, I've been looking at some, property market raids in as far as Cape Town is concerned. We know that some properties have been booming, quite expensive due to more and more people moving to Cape Town. So this app will be very, very useful in utilizing if you need to trace where the commitment lies for affordable housing, not just any housing, but also affordable housing, which is key in the city of Cape Town. My thanks to researcher Robyn Park-Ross from Funukwazi for speaking to me this morning.